do smartphones, customizable pizza menus, and gay dating apps have in common? They all ask you to set your preferences, but one of these things isn't quite like the others. We've talked about how the word preferences is often used to mask discrimination. When you hear a woman say something like, "I'm just not attracted to black guys," or "Asian men are too submissive," they're relying on racial generalizations perpetuated by systemic racism. But this kind of dating racism isn't just for straight people. So how does racism manifest in the world of LGBTQ relationships? Well, to answer that question, we've brought in my friend, Dylan Marron.
Well, Franchesca, the answer is not all that differently. If you've ever used a dating app like Grindr, Scruff, Tinder, OkCupid, Bumble, or let's be real, Twitter DMs, you've likely read something like this.
Ugh, I'm sorry, I'm only into white guys.
No fats, no femmes, no Asians. Well, not into black guys, just a preference. Well, we know racism on dating apps impacts people of all sexualities and gender expressions. I can tell you that this is a particular problem among gay men, because even though gay men themselves belong to a marginalized community, they can, and often do, perpetuate the oppression of others. In fact, a recent survey of over 850 gay men of color in the UK shows that more than 2/3 of individuals who identified as Black, Asian, South Asian, or mixed race reported encountering racism on gay dating apps. Survey says, racism. In fact, there are whole Tumblrs and Twitter accounts dedicated to documenting these racist messages, and when I want to feel even worse about the world, I read them. But when gay men are confronted about their racist language, many try to explain it away as a preference. I mean, they can't help it. It's just how they feel. As if they were captive to some mystical romantic force that naturally discriminates against people of color. And this is where structural racism comes into play, because preferences are actually shaped by learned values. When you're judging a person based solely on their racial background, you're acting on generalizations you've learned to associate with that person's appearance or heritage. You can't say it's their personality because you've shut them down before you even got to know them. The thing is, we're not born with preconceived notions about race, much like we're not born with political preferences, religious beliefs, or naturally winning smiles. I worked hard for that. We actually learn how to define what is attractive from those around us, and because we're raised within a framework of Western beauty standards, society often characterizes non-white features as different or unattractive. In fact, kids of all racial backgrounds up to age 10 or 11 are proven to be wildly inconsistent about their criteria for attractiveness and how it relates to race. Our use of race to classify individuals actually increases as we grow older, and it traditionally favors, drumroll please, white people. I know, it was a surprise to me too. So if our stereotypes about race are proven to be learned, and those stereotypes are shown to influence our attraction to others, it stands to reason that when you're generalizing about race, particularly on dating apps, your preferences are actually the product of an environment that normalizes racism. Man, math is scary. And simply knowing that might not be enough. A 2011 study in Australia that included gay and bisexual men found that sexual discrimination was linked to racial stereotypes rather than inherent preferences. But they also found that even men with diverse attitudes were remarkably tolerant of sexual racism. Some modes of discrimination have become so ingrained in gay culture we don't even notice when we're complicit in perpetuating them. And that doesn't just hold true for the ways we ignore people of color. Racial generalizations can also impact the language we use when we do choose to interact with each other. Exotifying people of color due to their race or background is commonplace on dating apps. Some people are looking for a poppy chulo, or a rice queen, or a DL thug, but this language is dehumanizing and reduces people to social stereotypes. It buys into a toxic tradition of racism by assuming whiteness is the norm and turning a person's identity into a fetish, essentially making them feel like an oddity or a rare find. Come on people, we're not Pokemon. So how do we unlearn racist perceptions we've been taught to normalize? Well, there are a few things to remember if we're gonna stop ourselves and others from doing that. First, if you're watching this video and you feel like you need to go change your profile, go do that, and congratulations on evolving so quickly. I'll wait. The second element is remembering how structural racism impacts our interactions and checking ourselves or others when a racist stereotype rears its head in a conversation. Consider this. If someone came up to you in person and just as they opened their mouth, you were like, "Sorry, not into Asians," you'd probably be called a jerk or at least get a drink thrown in your face. So why should we excuse those who do it online? There's no reason that gay men should accept racism when they're just looking to get some. digitally or otherwise. Oh, sorry, that's me. Ooh, and he's only 5 feet away. Franchesca, all yours.
Thanks, Dylan. So we've debunked the myth of preferences, studied the science of sexual racism, and armed ourselves with some tools to combat discrimination in our dating interactions. Challenging how racism shapes our perceptions of others, especially potential dates, isn't easy, but it means being open enough to learn from your mistakes and brave enough to challenge others when they simply excuse their racism as a preference. Thanks so much to Dylan Marron for joining us this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on Decoded.